Hey guys, so this is going to be a redo of tutorial number 5, which because of the software I was using to record, I wasn't able to upload it to YouTube. So this is a redo. I'm doing this like a week after the original, so I'm trying to keep it as consistent with the other videos as I can. But if I do forget anything or introduce any new concepts that I haven't really touched on, just let me know and I'll try to get it fixed or upload an updated video or something like that. So let's just get started right away. I've created a few elements in my scene here, which I think are carryovers from the previous tutorial. I have a floor, and I have a wall here that I created. Um, Let me show you how you stack items inside of the hierarchy. This is useful because you can have objects like if I want to move the whole level, which is these two objects, instead of having to select them manually, this one and this one, I can just attach these two together so that I can move the whole environment at once. Because if I have like 20 of these, I don't want to have to pick all 20 and then move them. So here it is in the hierarchy. It's a cube, and here's my floor. So I drop my cube right on top of the floor, and now you see it's linked. It becomes part of the floor's hierarchy. So whenever I select floor, it automatically selects everything inside of it. And if I just want to select that cube, I can just click it here, or I can go to my hierarchy, open up the floor, and click the cube, and I can move that individual component any way I want. So this is kind of the same concept we're going to use here with our character. You see our character sitting here. I positioned the camera right above the character in a way so that it's kind of like a point of view shot, or like a over the shoulder shot. And then I want this camera to follow my character whenever it moves. So what I do is I drop the camera right on top of the player, which is our character capsule there. So when I go to play, the camera is going to follow my character around. And this is if you had, for example, instead of this visible capsule, you had a character controller that has no visual, like for a first-person shooter. This is how you would go about doing that. So, uh, so now that you have your camera here, we're going to create a shooting mechanic here. And the way we do that is through a script in Prefabs. So I'm going to cover Prefabs first real quick. Prefabs are objects that you can create multiple copies of. It's like a recipe, and you use that recipe to create multiple like cookie cutter versions of it without affecting the original. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make a barrel, which is going to be a point from where we're going to shoot these bullets. So we're going to create, or sorry, we go to GameObject, and we make an empty one. You see that the empty has absolutely no attributes besides its position and rotation in the world. It actually has a scale, but you can't see it. There's no visual representation to it. So we just want to place it here. This is where the bullets are going to come out of. And if you had like a mesh with like a gun, you would put this at the tip of the barrel or whatever. And again, it's not doing anything yet. So what we want to do is create a asset, and the asset's going to be a prefab. You notice the prefab automatically is created inside the project assets because we went through assets, and there's absolutely no components to it, no anything, because it's not inside the scene. It's just in your assets. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach this game object, which is an empty, or sorry, that's not what we're doing. This is just going to be where the bullets come from. So we want to create the bullet itself and attach it to our prefab. So we go to Object, Create Other, and this is just what it's going to look like. It's going to be a sphere, like that. And at this point, it doesn't matter where we place it because we're not going to have it in the scene. We're going to just leave it in the assets, and the script is going to create it in the scene based on where that barrel is. Another thing real quick is the barrel, we need that barrel to follow the character. So again, we go to the barrel, we drop it on top of the character or the player, and now it's going to move wherever the player goes. So anyway, back to our sphere. Right now it's just a little sphere. Let's give it a little texture here, which is going to be, I'm going to use this one called Fairy Dust. So now that we have that created, we take it and we drop it on our prefab. And you'll notice the prefab has all the same components from that sphere we created. So we can get rid of the sphere now. And like I said, here is basically the recipe, and I'm going to call this bullet. And it's a recipe, so I'm going to create multiple cookie cutter copies of it. And I can change these in any way I want. I can move them. I can do whatever I want with them, but I'm not affecting the original prefab. So again, the prefab is just like your recipe to create these different instances of that object. So now that I have my bullet, I have my barrel, now I just need a way to get my bullets to come out of the barrel. So I'm going to do that through a script, and here I have the shooting script, which is a combination of a couple scripts that I got online. So the first thing is we're going to create a variable up here called projectile. That's going to be our bullet, and it's a rigid body. So we're going to require a rigid body for this, and we're not calling it anything because we're going to assign it via the inspector. So then we have a variable called speed, which is the speed at which this projectile is going to travel. And then inside the main function, the update function, so every frame we're going to check if the player is pressing the fire button. And if you do press the fire button, we're going to create an instance of that projectile along the transform position, so the position and the rotation of whatever object we have the script attached to. So in this case, we're going to attach the script to the barrel, so it's going to create this instance at the position and rotation of the barrel. Next, we want to move that clone, which is what we called it. So the clone, we're going to move it, so we're going to give it velocity along the direction of on the axis that it's facing based on the direction of the original object, so the barrel, by the speed that we designate in this variable here. And then we have a built-in function again called destroy, and this is going to get rid of it after a few seconds, so we don't want it to sit in the scene forever. So we destroy it using this function, and the arguments we pass to it are the game object of the clone. So in this case we want to use the game object, not just the clone, because if we just pass clone, it's going to delete the rigid body, which is an instance of this right here. And basically you would still see the game object, it just wouldn't have any rigid body physics to it. It would just sit there, so it's not what we're looking for. So we get rid of the game object of the clone. And the second argument is the delay. So how long does it take for this object to disappear? So now that we have our script, we want to go ahead and attach it. So I close that. I take my script and I attach it to the barrel. So when I click my barrel here, I have my script in this area right here. And then it's going to have an empty variable right here, so there's no projectile attached to it. It wants a rigid body. So we're going to use our bullet. But you'll notice when I try to attach my bullet to it, it won't let me. And that's because we are requiring through the script that this have a rigid body component, which it doesn't have. So it's an easy fix. What we do is we go up here to component, physics, and we attach a rigid body component to it. There it is. So I go to my barrel, I drop the bullet right on top, and there it is. So when I go to play, if I press my fire button, there's the bullets all over the place, and they disappear after 3 seconds as per the script. So another thing I wanted to show you was that in the script, you'll notice we were calling for or looking for the fire button being pressed. Now the fire button is determined by going here to edit, project settings, and then input. And in here you have all your inputs. In this case we were calling the fire 1 input, which is the left control on your keyboard, and mouse 0, which is your main click or right click, or I guess your left click if you're a lefty. Or sorry, your right click if you're a lefty. And you can always change these to whatever you want, as long as you don't have multiple buttons doing the same thing. And that's how you do that. Now you can always spice this up a little bit, because this is a bullet. Let's say we want to attach particles to it. We won't go into object and attach a particle to it, because this already has a game object attached to it. It's our sphere. So instead we attach a component, and you can attach the same components that are part of the variable, or sorry, that are part of the particles game object, but attach them as individual components. So in this case we're going to create an ellipsoid emitter, which is just it creates flat particles in space. You see here's the emitter, and then we want to attach another one, which is the animator. So this is going to control how they behave and how they change. And then we attach a third one, which is the renderer, so we can actually see these particles. And if I go to if I create a particle system, you'll see it has all the same components. This is the particle system here, and here's my prefab with the same components attached to it. So what you do next is you take the prefab and you can change these settings. So like in the renderer of the particles, you can go to material, change the material. Let's say you want like a fire trail or something. Attach a fire texture to it. Hit play, and it leaves a little trail behind. Now, of course, you can always change the way it looks to make it look a little better and animate it a little differently. But this just illustrates the point, and you can see that the particles disappear along with the bullets. Now, there's different ways to do it. You can do it with scripts or just create a straight up object. But this is just one quick way to get it gone, to do it and have the particles disappear with the object. So again, I hope I didn't miss anything, and if you didn't get the programming part, that's fine. I'll just put the code up and you can copy and paste. Just follow the steps and you'll be fine.